Hello everybody, how's it going? Our lesson today about parameters function part 2. As I said in the previous lessons, the data that we pass it between the two brackets next to the name of the function or next to the name of the procedure, we called it parameters. So let's go now to the code directly, the Visual Studio, to see what is parameter. Alright, this is the program from the previous lesson. If you remember this function that we created in the previous lesson, the function is about sum two values. We name it my first sum function. So this function is processed to sum two values when the compiler read the values from the user. So this function will display two questions for the user, and the user will read it through the console screen, and the compiler will collect the values through the console screen from the user and store it inside these two values x and y. But this is not the best practice for the function. If you want to let the compiler display question for the user and read data from the user through the console screen, it's not the best practice to put them inside the function. The function just do one thing, to process for you math, logic, and return for you one value, as we say. So what we should do now to fix our function and use the best practice for the function, we will erase these questions, and we will take this data type with the variables, put it here between these two brackets. We call it, as we say, parameters. Here add data type name, integer x, integer y. So now we have our function organized, right? But if you will go to the main function where we called our function name, the compiler show us an error. If you put the mouse on it, the compiler will show you the error too few arguments in function call. Like there is two arguments, we didn't call them, that belong to the two parameters. We say when we pass data through the function that we put them between the two brackets next to the name of the function or procedure, we call it parameters. So because we pass data or we pass parameters, we should to put value here. For example, 10, 20. 10 belong to x, variable x, 20 belong to variable y. Now if I want to run this program, compiler should display for me 30, because this function do sum. Whatever the numbers that I will put it in the parameters of the function, or whatever the values that I will put it in the parameters of the function, compiler should do one thing, one process in the end, which is sum the two numbers and give me the final result. For example, here we have 10 the first value, 20 the second value, and it's giving me 30. That's correct. So if I will copy this line of code and pass it here 3-4 times, for example, and I will change the number to 60, 15, 70, 80, 10. All right, and I did run again. The compiler should do the same process on all the parameters or on all the values that I put them in the function or in the parameters of the function. The first result, it was 30 because 10 plus 20 is 30. The second result is 62 because 2 plus 60 is 62. The third result is 85 because 15 plus 70 it's 85. And the final result is 90 because 10 plus 80 it's 90. So that was the best practice for the function. If you want to use function, you will just let the function do one process and return for you one value. And it's not good to let the function display questions and read data from the user. If you want to do this, you will put it in procedure, as we said, or out of the function here in the main function. We will define integer data type and declare two variables, same name, all right, x. So I will come here, just I will do like this, x, y, and here we will read, for example, from the user the data. That's how it should to be. If you want to let the compiler display questions for the user and read data from the user through the console screen, it's not good to put it inside the function. You have to put it outside or in a procedure. The function just return one value. All right, that was the lesson of the parameters. See you next lesson, guys. Ciao.